Good morning. Peter here. Recently I was reading in the 12th chapter of Romans, which is one of my very favorite chapters in the New Testament. It's a wonderful bit of advice that Paul has to offer us concerning how we live as people of faith and how we do that in community. And one verse caught my eye. In the 11th verse of the 12th chapter of Romans, Paul writes, "Don't burn out. Keep yourselves fueled and aflame." And this reminded me of how important it is for us to keep ourselves properly fueled so that we can be ready when God calls us to serve. And one way that we do that is to spend time in community. There is something about gathering together in Christian community that keeps us fueled and aflame. It reminded me of a story that someone shared with me years ago concerning a pastor who was called to serve a church in Scotland. And when he got there, he found that the people were very happy to greet him and get to know him, but he was told straight away about a man who had been very active in the church, but he had simply stopped coming some years previous. Something had happened no one could remember, and he refused any contact from anyone in the church. And so the pastor just decided to make a visit. He went out to the man's farm and knocked on the door. When the door was opened, the gentleman looked at him and said, "I know who you are and I know why you're here, and I don't want to talk with you, but you're welcome to come in and sit by the fire and warm yourself if that's what you want to do." So the pastor took him up on it, and they sat there together in silence. And then after a bit, the pastor took the poker and he walked up to the fire and he knocked one of the logs off, and it rolled a good bit away. And it was a flame for a little bit, and then the flame was extinguished and it just sat there smoldering by itself. At this point, the pastor went over with a set of tongs and he lifted up the log and he placed it back on the fire, and it burst into flame. It was at this point that the gentleman looked over at the pastor and said, "I get your point. I'll be in church on Sunday." There's just something about gathering together in Christian community, being with other believers, that nurtures and encourages us, that strengthens us, that fuels us and keeps us aflame and ready to be of service in the world. Christians are really meant to gather together. And these days we do that in a variety of different ways. Many of us are coming together in person. Others are participating via Zoom, but we gather to worship, to study, to share. And that is so important. I've also found over the years that I've experienced this kind of encouragement by reading books, by seeking out great minds who are ready and willing through their words on page to help me grow and develop in my faith. And there are also many videos that have blessed me as well. And then there's music. How often I've found myself encouraged and fueled in my faith by listening to Bach or chants or even contemporary Christian music. I mean, there are so many wonderful resources out there for us to engage other believers as they share their faith with us through music. So maybe think for a moment about how you have been encouraged and kept fueled and aflame by being in relationship with other Christians. How has that happened in your life? And how maybe might you provide that to someone else today? I hope you have a wonderful day, however God leads you, wherever you find yourself, finding new ways to be faithful.